We're on air. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, folks. Welcome to the largest, pretty active, and fastest growing community, large scale Scrum, New York City based. That's how we started. Now we're global. Today we have a special guest, my friend and colleague, Mark Bregenzer from Germany. Mark is a certified last trainer, and he has a very interesting career. Mark started communication engineering and started his professional work as a software developer back in 1997 at Siemens. He then worked at Nokia, Siemens in 2007 and on, worked as a Scrum Master and coach at different teams, with different teams at different companies in Germany, China, and elsewhere around the globe. He is one of the most active and more reputable trainers and coaches in the agile community that I know personally, and it's my personal honor to have him here. We just met about a month ago at Berlin last conference, where Mark kindly agreed to have this conversation. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Gene, for all these kind words. First, the question. I have a technical problem at the moment. I don't know why, but you can see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. So Gene did already a perfect introduction. I skipped that. I will talk about today about the balance between alignment and autonomy. So I will also a little bit talk about that. What is alignment? How did we, or how do we usually try to get alignment? And what means autonomy in that sense? So, and then I will really shortly talk about some frameworks, or about frameworks at all, but not in detail, and not, that will just one slide, and then I will skip it. And then I will say how we can balance autonomy and alignment, and then I will share some practices. So what that means and how you can do that. Was there a question? I'm not sure. No. Okay. Usually in traditional organization, and that's our culture, and that was quite successful, we try to get alignment via hierarchy. So we have these, with the organizational design, we have the bosses, we do the separation of work and responsibilities and so on. And then we have a top-down alignment via management and managers. So the characteristic is, this is a very stable organization that's controllable. All of the parts in the organization have their focus, right? But what we see and what we experience, especially in large organizations, is that they are slow in decision making, because they use the hierarchy and escalation paths to make these decisions. And usually we have then project alignments, because for value creation, we need several different parts in the organization. So we have then the project alignment, and that leads, in my observation, to maybe unstable organization. So it's not that stable anymore, because people need to move around in these projects. Then it becomes harder to control, because we have conflicts in top-down targets or in project targets. So we see that then on the team level. So especially in multi-project landscapes, we see then that the stronger project leads get more capacity, more attention, and more progress than maybe some other guys who are not that strong in forcing people to work for them. And of course, what we also see is that the focus is then also decreasing, because people work in many different projects in parallel, and then they have also some other problems in prioritization and so on. The normal stuff, I'm pretty sure you are familiar with that, but that's how we try to keep alignment. When we go for autonomy, for agile organization, that all the teams do Scrum, we have then interdisciplinary team self-organization, and the characteristic is very flexible, but from the management perspective, very hard to control, because they are self-organized and self-managed sometimes. And the teams, that what I saw years ago, is that the teams focus then only on their purpose, so not collaborating with each other more. That's some of the things we saw there, but they are very fast in decision making, right? They can do their own stuff. And one of the problems with that is that, so at least from the description of that, you can see that there is somehow, it looks like an irreconcilable difference. So there is a clash between alignment and autonomy. And so when everyone does what they want in agile organizations, so there is no alignment or no consistent product development. So, and that's a slide to the to the frameworks. That's why we have these kind of frameworks, because they try to solve that problem on getting alignment and autonomous teams somehow together. And all these frameworks have different approaches on that, more stronger on top-down approaches, others more on the flexibility, on the autonomy of the teams. But I won't talk about that today, because there are essential things in product development. And one of the things I would like to talk is how can we balance autonomy for fast decision making and adaptiveness, and alignment for consistent product and services. This is for me the most important question. How can we achieve that in an organization? And we know all that the complexity in software and product development increased over the last years. And we know that networks can deal best with complexity. This is something we know from practice from the last decades, that this is really, really important. But so what gives an agile organization, so orientation or alignment? So usually we try to focus all of them to create customer value. And when we have a bunch of teams, a huge organization focus on a customer value, they need to work towards that goal. That's what we suggest. So an orientation is given by the product vision, by common values and principles, how they will act on that, maybe also on the working model side. But that creates a lot of dependencies. Usually in traditional organization, when we keep these components, all the components need to contribute to create these customer value. And when we now have so many dependencies, which is not solved via hierarchy, so we have that direct dependencies. So how would we handle that? What is the suggestion on that? And now I have I hope you can do that. I have a Mentimeter, and I would like to know from you how you think we should deal with these dependencies. So I will give you, I think 3 minutes should be enough, so that you can scan that, or you can, maybe I should post the link and that. So I go back, sorry for that. For those who have no chance there. Where is the chat? Sorry. Why can't see the chat anymore? Where's the chat?
There's a chat down below at the bottom next to participants. If you're sharing, it's behind.
Here it is. I have it. And I put it. Chat. Where's all? Oh, cannot put it to. Gina, I posted to you. I cannot post to all of you. Could that be?
The chat's not it's not showing up for me, the link. Maybe bring the QR code back.
I got the chat window. Hold on a second. I'll repost to the group. This is Mark's link, folks. Take it from me.
So let's do 1 minute left.
Sure.
Okay. Not that many, but okay. So most of you think that we need to manage these dependencies, and that's quite obvious because that's what we usually do. We try to manage these things there. Solving is also something which is related to management, I think. It's good that no one has chosen ignore, but from my perspective, the best thing with dealing with dependencies is eliminating dependencies. And we can do that. We can eliminate dependencies by, we will talk about that, by adapting the organizational design, some of the practices, I will show you that later on. And I'm not sure, Gene, but Bas has also talked about the maximizing dependencies, right? So that looks like a conflict with what I'm saying, but that's not true because Bas mentioned that maximizing the dependencies between the team for learning so that they can benefit and learn from each other and become better on that. But what I meant is the blocking dependencies should be removed. So that means that team A is producing something, right? But team B has to wait until they are done. That's a different one. And these kind of dependencies we would like to eliminate, and that's possible. And so you should see my, yeah. So how can we do that? We can eliminate nearly all of them dependencies by splitting up the customer value. So a product has usually many different customer values they provide. They can be implemented quite independently by single organizations or by feature teams. If you split the overall customer value to smaller portions, you will end up with less dependencies between the teams. And if you have real feature teams, that would be ideal. Then they can deliver these values by themselves without any dependency. So decoupling feature teams in the sense of not related to learning, so more related to being able autonomously delivering customer value, give the teams autonomy, but we still have dependencies, right? But if we have really focused on end-to-end customer value per team, then these dependencies are more technical. They are just we are working on the same code. We are working in the same repository. We are working, but not in a sense, we are working on something where we need your contribution. This is something very different. And that enables teams to do that. And to be honest, that's somehow relatively easy to deal with these dependencies in the product or in the code. So teams can parallel work on value creation, and by integrating their working results into the into the product, they might then see the effects of their own work or to other works, to other teams' work. So they get the feedback if there is something broken or if it's still working. And one of the key techniques is practicing continuous integration. And I need really to say what I understand under continuous integration. When I became a Scrum Master in 2007, there was continuous integration, and we never discussed what that meant. Continuous integration, in my understanding, there was integrating my working results in the product, in the target product, right? Later on, then I've learned that people came up with ideas of continuous delivery and continuous deployment, which is a subpart of my understanding of continuous integration. So when I see continuous integration, that delivers me fast feedback because I get the transparency about what my working results were affected. And now, so one of the things, continuous integration ensures alignment while it keeps teams self-organized and self-managed. Because when I integrate my working result into the product, let's not make it too technical. It's a technical aspect, but make it not that. When I integrate my design, when I integrate my story, my change in the code, immediately I get feedback from the product that others' working results are not broken, hopefully, or if they are broken, I can then immediately react on that. So whenever you have barriers for integration, these are barriers for coordination as well, and therefore for alignment. Whenever you have not integrated your working results, and whatever that is, that can be code, that can be a design, that can be an idea where you think about, it's not aligned with the product and the working result of all the others. So my question would be the next. I need to go just so. I come back immediately. So I would like to know from you. It's the same link. I would like to know, give all the ideas, what does continuous integration means for you? What do you understand under continuous integration? So another 3 minutes. You can write as much as you want and as often you want.
Mark, just checking that you're audible, right?
Pardon?
You're audible. Good. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. So let's see the results. Seamless flow, customer value, continuous delivery, often repository, continuous delivery, transparency. All good things. Alignment, fix fast. Align with cadence, code changes, learning together. Oh, cool. Removed applications. Product something with ready product. People still writing. Learning together. Production ready product. There is it. Build fast, testing, TDD, feedback loop, alignment, feedback. Feedback. Okay, there is some steadiness in that. Thanks a lot. What I didn't see, no silence, validation. Oh, people writing more. Okay, let's somehow continue. I didn't see that. Maybe we can check it later together again. So what I didn't saw there, and what is really important in my understanding, that's an employee behavior. Continuous integration, in my perspective, is an employee behavior, and everyone in the organization should focus on integrating their own working results as fast as possible with the working results of all the others. This is the idea behind that. And if you understand continuous integration as a behavior, and it's not only behavior, it's also technical, as you wrote a lot of good things there. And then if you take that seriously, that has far-reaching implications on an organization if you understand continuous integration as a culture. Let's say behavior is culture. And if that is the culture, then that has huge impacts on organizational design, on working models and development practices, on infrastructure, on budgeting, and also on business analysis. And of course, all these 5 bubbles there have, especially for organizational design, according to Galbraith, there is people in there that some are also there, reward system and a strategy as well. So this it should be also considered here. But now I will go to some of the good practices I see. So in organizational design, build product groups, decouple organization from architecture. So organize around customer value and establish feature teams. This is one maybe still controversial. I see a lot of people saying, oh, we need Conway's law or reverse Conway's law. What still leads to something where people are focusing and organized around architecture. And Conway's law is not set. We can change that. He just saw, he analyzed organizations, IT organizations, and made that rule from that. But that doesn't mean that we need to work like that or organize our organizations around that. We can change that. We have that, and some of the companies are doing that already. Enable business and functional career paths in parallel. That's really, yeah, in parallel to hierarchical career path. That's really crucial. Otherwise, yeah, people do not want to become cross-functional or only focusing on that stuff. There come a lot of change with that, and this is really something, and that have ripple effects in organization. These 2 things, decouple the organization from the architecture and changing the career path, that's a challenge, but it's worth to do that. And that's really helpful if you achieve that. In the business analysis, so that means that you do not upfront analyze, because if you do upfront analyze, you have a sequential life cycle. So then you do not integrate your business ideas immediately. So do the business analysis with the team or in the teams, and and change from upfront analysis to incremental analysis and design. So this is really budgeting, right? The lowest the team level is the lowest level of resource planning then. So not focusing or striking on single individuals. So that will also foster learning in the organization and help people to create their routines and get better as a team. Budgeting around product groups and not features or items. This is also a huge challenge. So if you have rolling targets and rolling budgeting, I think Bjarne will also have the Beyond Budgeting talk, I think, next week. So join that. It's quite useful, I think. And maybe you are also familiar with Silicon Valley budgeting. That's also a nice approach where you can foster continuous integration and that alignment and autonomy by techniques in the budgeting environment. And in the development area, so coordinating through integration. This is a change. So we integrate continuously and see then that there are problems, and then we coordinate us to solve maybe a problem. In the most cases, I worked as a developer in such an environment. I could solve that by myself because I did the change and can do that or redo that or fix it later on. Continuous refactoring, that's also very important. This is also related to the engineering practices that you do, that you write always backward compatible, so that you do not change and bother others with your change behaviors. TDD, ATDD, high level of test automation, but also on automation. This is also very key because most of the clients, my clients, which do have problem with continuous integration, continuous delivery, or continuous deployment, they lack of automation and also of knowledge of automation. That's really important because that provides fast feedback with the build system so that you have these fast builds and feedback that enables learning. Without feedback is learning not possible. And build system should also reflect the business view. This is also not that common, I think. When I help organizations to set up a build system that they can then practice continuous integration, that should be visible, or they should reflect on not that test is broken, they should reflect on, oh, at the moment we cannot create new users, or we cannot change our contracting, or let's say the configuration of the product is fine. This is something that everyone needs to understand, that can understand a developer, that can understand a customer, a stakeholder, a manager, a tester. So this is somehow which helps to see if we split in customer value or in smaller customer values, that we can combine and see how we are working related to these customer values. And therefore, a build system should reflect the business view as well, not just the technical view. And many developers are mad when they start creating a build system, they think out of the developer perspective, and no one else can really read that. And use communities also for alignment purposes. So common design sessions, so Les is recommending an architecture community and a UX community for good reasons, because we need alignment on these, right? We need an aligned understanding of the architecture, and the look and feel and the user experience should across big products the same for the customers, right? Yeah, infrastructure, that's very often forgotten in agile transformations, in bigger ones. So they usually invest in educating people, in hiring coaches, and then go ahead. But how do they build their system? Do they have a common development environment and a shared build system, right? Do they have multiple test environments, so maybe also virtually, so that people can really test on the integrated system in parallel? There are different aspects. Or do they have just manual test beds? And if they change test data, then other people have problems in testing. So this should be also decoupled. Yeah, you need team rooms and rooms for multi-team events, especially in LAS. I think Thave has that as well, but they just use it once in a quarter. In LAS, we would like to use that more often so that we get more alignment with the team so that they can interact with that. And therefore, you need room space and plenty of wall spaces so that people can really work with these magic whiteboards and visualize stuff and do designs and so on. And for remote work, that becomes more and more important, especially after COVID. So you need a proper conference system where you have also the possibility for breakout system, breakout rooms and so on, and a good electronic whiteboards as well, right? So that people can really collaborate. And a good technique is for having these huge whiteboards and doing multi-team refinement with the World Cafe format or with open space format or fishbowl collaboration pattern that can be also done in remote work, right? And do not forget, there's a gravity between alignment and autonomy. So there are different forces on that, and they really fight with each other, and that never stops. That's the nature of that alignment and autonomy conflict. That never stops. So this is something you need to balance all the time. That if you change your team size or your team members, if you change your product backlog, if you remove that or moving into different directions of the product, if you change management, individuals, techniques, technologies, then that will affect, that will force you to think about the new alignment here. And this is something you can do in retrospectives and so on. And I would also share some of the bad practices. Sometimes it's good to know what you should do, but it's sometimes also good to see when something is maybe not that proper and brings an imbalance in between autonomy and alignment. And especially in the organizational design, if you have specialized group, UX architects, analyze separated from each other, not talking to each other, then that's a pretty good indicator for you might have a problem with being aligned with all the others. When you only have component teams are not that bad. Even in LAS, we say the majority of the teams should be customer-centric end-to-end feature teams. But if the feature development is not really blocked or hindered by a specific component teams, maybe you have a CI team, build system team or so on, or simulation team, that might be okay. If you have specific epic and feature owner, this is also an indicator that there might be something wrong because he takes care for alignment and not the organization and not integration. And ITPO, we saw that many times that you have a business department, you have an IT department, and there is a business PO, and then they think, okay, we need something to accompany you, and then you have an IT PO with different targets. That is also an indicator sometimes that you might have a misalignment. And yeah, and the quality manager roles, which takes the responsibility from all the people in the organization, because there's a whole department and a whole leader talking about for quality and so on. And business analyzes the whole product backlog at once or featured at once, not incrementally. And that's high speculative. There, I have once an experiences at a car manufacturer, and we worked there. That was not the autonomous driving, and we worked there for I think 2 years. And then another department came and said, "Hey, you did so great job. We would like to integrate our UX design in your product, because we would like to have our services in your product also in there, and we have a nice UX design in that. And they came. I've never saw that again. He came with the printout, and where they all had the picture in there, and very proud presenting that as to our UX designer and lead designer, and he flipped through the pages and saw immediately after 10 seconds a graphic element which was not allowed in the blueprint of the company. And they said, oh, we are not allowed to use that. And they said, oh, but that's a core UX element in our concept. And they said, okay, we cannot implement that. And then they learned that they had half a year, 6 months working on a concept which was not integrated, not talked to them, and could not be implemented. That was really an extreme. But this is something we observed in many companies, not in that extent, but that's a problem. So continuously integrating these ideas, getting the feedback and learning from that, and invest in incremental product development. Budgeting. So measure progress on use budget. I see that still, that they really measure the functional progress on the spend budget. That's a bad habit. Budgeting on single tiny items. So every item must be calculated, or budget, and budgeting individuals or single teams is also not a good idea. I go to the to the infrastructure first. So no shared build system or pipeline. That's also an indicator that you have not real aligned product development. You will maybe have later integration phase, and then you see that very late. But you can be sure that the teams are not really aligned. And each team or each team member has their own special development environment. That's also then difficult. We have that not intended, invented here problem many times, that developers say, oh, it works in my environment. You need to prove me that's my fault. That I saw that also very often. Yeah, if people start coordinating for integration, this is a bad habit, right? Related to that, integrate for coordinating. So integrate and get then the result and say, okay, we have a problem or everything is fine. But when we have a problem, then we coordinate each other. And if you spend a lot of efforts in coordinating so that you can integrate, there is something really wrong. One of my favorites topics, I will also deep dive a little bit later on. And that's really nice to talk about that. Feature branches are also an indicator for bad practice. Many teams and many developers are really proud on their feature branch that works very well. But in a large environment with real feature teams, with many teams on the same code base, that's quite hard. And long-lived branch, for my understanding, 2 hours, right? That should be avoided. Pull requests before integrating, it's the same stuff. It prevents integration, and integration is the key factor to be aligned. Hardening sprints, we have that. Even Safe has skipped that, officially at least. Asynchronous integration points. So that's why we use sprint. So one of the problems with dependencies is not the dependencies. I cannot remember that I met 2 developers with dependencies and say, oh, we cannot solve that. I've never seen that. The main problem is the asynchronity of the dependencies, so that when do I know that I now need to work with that person from the other team because we have a problem? If we do not integrate that, if we don't have these synchronization points, we might not see that. And one of the things is that many teams work, or I see a lot of organization working in sprints, but in decoupled sprints. So the first team has the sprint end on Wednesday, the others on Tuesday. Some teams have that in the odd week. Some teams have that in the even week. So this is something which is really an impediment for being aligned and for enabling that. So, and playing the contract game, of course. This is something we see also in development teams. And now I will say a little bit more, or let's say, I won't say that by myself in that sense, but because feature branches are still a huge topic in product development. And see some screenshots and the links below that, then you can read that by yourself, because just a snippet from the side from Atlassian. So they brought Gitflow into the game, and they say that Gitflow is a legacy Gitflow, and that because it's not modern enough, or maybe modern software development practices like DevOps prefer trunk-based development. So even the founder of the Gitflow of feature branches says, oh, that's a historical, that was useful, but now there are better techniques like trunk-based development. And people from trunk-based development, because I get sometimes the request that, yeah, that might work for small organizations, right? But trunk-based development is not possible if you have more than 10, 50, 20 people, right? And there's a nice statement that Google works with 35,000 developers. That's a statement not from me, it's from trunk-based development. And I think the smaller, the lowest quote is also interesting, that continuous delivery and DevOps handbook, this should be even not controversial anymore, right? But in practice, I can say I have a lot of discussions with developers, with teams, that they still fight for their feature branches. So, and now we are quite on time, I guess. So my last slide, my last recommendation, keep in mind, every planning activity to achieve alignment is speculative, maybe even high speculative. But all alignment achieved via continuous integration is empirical. And what we want is empirical process control. This is the heart of product development, of delivering value to our customers. So, my final words, thank you for listening. We might have still some time for questions.
We surely have. We're going to have a hard stop at 1, but Eastern Standard folks, if you have any questions for Mark.
Questions, remarks, whatever you want.
Folks, this is your time. We got about 9 minutes on the clock.
Yeah. Was that helpful? Was it waste of time?
People are still sleepy.
There are people raising
Adam
their hand.
and Karen, either one of you.
Karen, you were first.
So, thank you for the presentation. You mentioned under practices to avoid is coordinating for integration.
Yeah.
Would you speak to that? Why is that bad? And what does it lead to?
Yeah, because it's a speculative speculative activity. You plan the coordination that you can integrate something, right? And this creates a lot of effort, but self-organization means that I can integrate my stuff into the product, and from that I can see that it's working, and it's less effort. It's less effort when I then see, oh, I create a problem, or there is a problem, and then I can go to the person where I create that problem and solve that. So whenever you have that planning activity and saying, oh, we need to integrate all the stuff, you delay you do not practice continuous integration. One of my messages of that talk is that continuous integration is key. That's a behavior. All working results should be integrated immediately, as fast as possible, with all the working result of others. And if you start coordinating for integration, you plan the integration, and that's not continuously. This is the thinking behind that.
Well, I mean, you talked about putting heads together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, in some cases, like the two people on the teams discussing it and having maybe a better
But
plan.
that's a different, but that's a different point. So if they sit together to pair programming, for instance, and talk to each other and say, okay, how can we now integrate that? That's a practice in doing and integrating the stuff. So they talk to each other. But what I meant is that people maybe have an release train engineer coordinating all the teams, inviting for a big meeting, and then saying, okay, in 3 weeks we need to integrate all the stuff, let's coordinate that. So where are the testers? When do they come together? When do the teams bring their code base together? When do we merge the feature branches? This all is an indication that continuous integration is delayed. You're not aligned at that moment. Do you get the point? It's not about talking to each other. It's good. It's not good. I think it's better to coordinate for integration than uncoordinated or unintended, throw all the things together. That's not what I meant it with practice integration for coordinating. So there are some techniques how you can do that in splitting up the value, the bigger customer values in smaller, maybe user stories, and delivering that and continuously checking that and testing that together. And all the people work in the same repository, they work in the same, they have a shared build pipeline, maybe all the people checking in the trunk master wherever, and from that master the build is done, all the contributions will be put together on a hourly basis. And then you see if you are still aligned with the product. And then you don't need that anymore, that you need to coordinate to when do we bring all the integrated parts into the product on Wednesday in 3 weeks. And if you need
Okay,
that,
thank you.
if you need that, if you need that, don't stop it. Right? So if you need that, don't stop it. But think about what you could do, and some of the ideas I shared might help there, that you can get rid of that coordinating for integration, that you can practice continuous integration and then flip in something which leads to, oh, we can continuously integrate. I get that feedback as a developer that everything is fine. I did a great job, right? And when the central the central build pipeline says, I check in something, and Karen, you checked in also something, and we detect, oh, there was a mistake and misunderstanding. We did integrate our work results and they do not match to each other, then we can solve that. And in LESS, it's not coming out of the blue. If I make the reference to LESS, we have that multi-team refinement session where we would talk about what we are doing, right? And maybe we have also shared sprint planning too, where we do the design on that. So we can also interact and get a common understanding on that. But then we should not need the purpose of coordinating that we will integrate in 3 weeks something, because we do that continuously. Does that answer?
Yeah, I will re-listen. Also,
Okay.
so thank you for your response.
Adam?
Let's take another one. Mark, let's see if we can take at least one more question. Perhaps there was where's the Adam? Adam had a hand up.
Yeah, Adam, I just.
Yeah, I was so busy starting to respond in the chat that I forgot my question.
Oh, sorry. Didn't check the chat yet.
I hadn't posted it yet.
You got the question? It happens.
More questions,
Really
more
interesting.
remarks.
No more questions?
I'll take another. Oh, Aaron's got one.
All right,
Hello?
go ahead. Yeah,
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the talk today. It was a great talk. I'd like to understand how you see or how you view continuous journey mapping with continuous integration. Because I've been really focusing on kind of the original journey mapping kind of techniques more and more. You know, and I find that to be a very comfortable space to have the customer in, or the end value, you know, working results, sort of end user. And I've been looking to sort of fold more CI activities into that process, you know, where they make sense. And I found that to be, and basically putting it into what's called an open Kanban concept, where, you know, just a completely transparent, kind of very simplified Kanban. And I've just found that to be a very sustainably comfortable environment. Point that even on Thanksgiving or, you know, today, people are doing, you know, non-threatening updates, as I call them. You know, they're just sort of contributing. You know, it just, there's something about, I don't know, a few of those techniques, especially I think the customer journey just doesn't seem as imposed. If that makes any sense, from you know, from an alignment perspective.
Yeah, I think I'm not 100% sure that I understand your journey mapping, but usually the customer does not just go through one journey, right? Or just one part of always the whole journey. You can try to implement the one part of the journey, or what might be another interesting part. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the technique of cell-based splitting. So if you use that one, maybe you have a lot of hard codings in, but you run through the whole journey. And you can implement that by maybe in one sprint. And afterwards, you remove that hard codings, the maybe also some mocks or some stubs in with that. And by the way, but when you have implemented once the journey with the result, maybe with many hard codings or just reading out a file and providing that to the end customer, and it's but then you have integrated that the result might be okay, even that it's hard coded, for instance, over many systems, and is mocked. And after in every sprint now you remove some of the hard coding, some you implement some generic parts, and you get continuously that feedback, and that from the integration, so that you can build up incrementally your product or your user journey. So I don't see really a conflict on that. What I might add, because you mentioned that Kanban is a great system. I think that's really visualizing the process and very successful. In large scale, there is that problem, maybe that you don't have that synchronization points. When do teams need to know that they now need to work together? If you practice continuous integration as an behavior, and you have a technical system, common build pipeline, then it's not that critical anymore, because you have these synchronization points over the techniques, and then you see if you're still aligned or not, and then you can talk to the other Kanban team.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Adam, for the question, and Mark for the answer. I'm actually looking at the clock. We at the time when we need to wrap this up. I want to really thank you personally, Mark, for coming out and doing this for us, and I wish to thank everyone for joining and, following us and participating. On this note, I would like to also wish everyone who is in the United States or elsewhere in the world who is celebrating Thanksgiving, please do so. Have another day of feasting and getting some, joy from being with your families. Okay, Mark, thanks again. I'll be looking for your materials and I'll have them.
Yeah, I
posted.
will send you, and then you can.
Yeah, please send them to me directly. Thank
I
you very
will.
much, folks.
Bye.
Very-
Thanks for your question. It was really nice.
It's
Bye.
great having you.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.